Hi, welcome to Armchair Talks. And this is a series that I wanted to do about men's talk. And I've got the lovely Ross Ferguson here, who I would love to talk about why. Well, to start off with, Ross, welcome.
Hi.
I just wanted to start off with, I was curious. We had a conversation recently about men's mental health, whether that's just somebody who's shy or self-conscious or has lower self-esteem or has anxiety, etc., etc. So why is it different? There's a definite difference for me when I work with clients about who is coming to me, because women tend to talk to their friends, talk to their family about how they're feeling on a daily basis. You know, we gabble away and we say when we're angry or upset or finding things difficult. I think that is different for men, because with the men that I've had, they have friends, and you've got lots of friends, but that those conversations don't happen, do they? I'd love
No.
to hear what you think about men's mental health and why people don't come for help.
Yeah. Well, for men, I think it's a very difficult subject to go on, and most men, including myself, wait till you're at a very sort of down point in your life before you actually will go and get help. And the reason for it, I think, is it feels at that stage, before you've got the wisdom to know what mental health is all about, feels very weak to um, ask for help or to talk about help, because men are seen to be this strong figure and want to be this strong masculine figure. And a lot of people, you try and cope with it as best as you can on your own. But the reality is, a lot of men could get well without having to go to such a low place if they went and just sought help earlier. And what you actually start to realize when you do get help is the fact that it's actually a great strength to get help. It's so much stronger than the fact someone that has a problem but hides the problem and keeps the problem away from the world is not showing strength, really. They're trying to deal with it, but it's not working. Someone that admits that they've got a problem, it's showing strength to admit that. And once you do admit that, you can see how much it helps you personally. And once you start talking to other people all of a sudden will come out with how they're feeling and what's going on with them. And it's such a strong thing to do once you finally get help.
I love that. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. I've never heard you say that before, actually. And that's really, it is true. I think it is. We women don't see it as a strength to go and get some help. We see it as a necessity. And I use my friends. One of my friends is an amazing therapist, and I'll talk to her because she helps me find my insights. But we don't see it as whether we're strong or we're not. We just see it as wanting help. So yeah, that's really, really interesting that you're right, you know, that it is, a man will be weaker inside himself. He will feel weaker when he is struggling. It doesn't mean he is, and it doesn't mean that's a true and a fact, but he will feel weaker. And when you go for therapy and somebody understands why they're doing what they're doing and they feel supported, I think men like to be supported as well.
No, I think a lot of men, as myself in past, as I'm single now, but in past relationships, I use my girlfriend as a support, as for support, you know, without them even realizing it. I was using them as support. And as a man, when you're on your own, you realize that you need to be able to support yourself. And and it's very, and you don't, sometimes you don't realize it until that support's not there, that you're even getting it.
Yes.
It's
That's
very,
so insightful, because that's so true. And that, by the way, is the same for women, that we fall into relationships because we've got a need, we're needy, we don't have the strength to set boundaries and barriers and, you know, make great choices, and you end up in a relationship, and if you're very, very lucky, you will have an amazing man or woman who you naturally love, and you support each other, and it does hold you up. But the majority of people are having relationships where need is the first thing really that's driving them to be in that relationship. And it's only when you don't have it, you start falling apart, and you realize, if you're wise and really are honest with yourself, you'll realize that you need some help.
yeah, no, I think it's very, and usually when you start to get depressed or anxiety or OCD, it's usually because something's wrong within you.
Mm.
And, you know, sometimes, like, then by going and seeing a therapist and doing personal development, you can find out what the problem is, and then you have such a better understanding. You don't have to cope with the problem, you can resolve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's a massive difference for people. It really, yeah, because then you can sort problems out.
Mm. If we're talking about anxiety, depression, OCD, those sorts of things, so let's put addictions aside, or
Yeah,
those sorts of things. But if we're talking about those, every single man that has come to me has learned why, and learn how to really connect with themselves so that they don't have these issues anymore. So all of this stuff is resolvable. All of this stuff means that we can have healthy men walking around, being in touch with who they are, and they know how to live a happy life. You know, it's so important that we're bringing up children at some point, many of us, and we want to be in the best place possible to be able to do that and pass that on to our children.
yeah. And the remarkable thing with men is it's just the courage to seek help.
Mm,
That's And that is such a massive thing.
mm,
And because I remember for me, it was such a massive thing. I got told, mate, I needed help probably a good few months before I went and actually got help. And the reason for is, man, when you're not wise, you do see it as, I can hold out a bit longer. I've got this. I might get better. And it's only when, and a lot of men tend to be very low when they get therapy because they've
yeah,
held on too long.
it's true.
And I really would stress to people, if you are feeling just
Mm,
that something's not right with you, go and get help early, because I think personal development for even people that haven't got any mental health issues
mm,
would be a great thing, because it teaches you how to be wise in
mm.
all life aspects, and how it teaches you.
I love that you call it personal development, because therapy to me is, I'd love people to talk about it in a way of personal development, especially men, because it is personal and it is development. It's about getting emotionally intelligent. When we don't understand our inner world, things start falling apart, and we operate from being in a position of having bad or belief systems that don't work for us.
Yeah,
So we don't operate in the best way possible to have a happy life. So when you come along and you start learning about those things, then life starts changing, because it gives you other options.
yeah.
So that's how I see it when I talk to men. So
Mm.
what did you start seeing and learning?
Um, for me, that a lot of the things, I was relying on the outside world for happiness massively,
Mm,
and not actually looking at who I was as a person.
mm,
Um, and of course, that leads to other things, like I tried people pleasing. You're trying to find happiness in whatever you can, and also I had a lot of coping mechanisms
mm,
which were very unhealthy. They were just stuff that had allowed me to get by for quite a few years, but they were really unhealthy and led to my mental health declining.
Yeah.
So by finding a better way to deal with issues, and it's not easy. It takes time of unraveling and finding the root cause of some of the issues. But once you start to find the root cause, you can start to unravel the coping mechanisms, and you can start just living life in a good, positive way. And you see everything different. And for me, it's made me much more understanding of other people. So when you see, I can tell when someone could do with someone to talk to, and you can really see especially you can just see when someone needs help more. It just makes you so much more wise and insightful, and your quality of life is better, so much better. Yeah, so it's just but it's a very hard, it's very hard to get there, but it's totally worth it to go through all these things to get
Yeah,
to the
and for somebody who's got, if somebody is caught at a level where they realize that they're struggling a bit and they go and get help, it doesn't take so long. It's when
no.
you leave it for years and years and years and years that it's, you know me, I'm the biggest one for saying I'm not really interested in somebody's past problems, because showing you how life works inside yourself means that those sort of problems sort of drift away. But as things become more complicated for people because they leave it so long, then you've really got it. It's like a tapestry that you start pulling apart.
Yeah.
Because you want to get back to where it's just a bare piece of material. We need to do that. We need to look at exactly what is sparking those issues. So I love that you brought up about that you distracted by having coping mechanisms. And some of those coping mechanisms that I can think of, and you mentioned one of those, is people pleasing.
Yeah.
So we also have people who want to control their environment, because if they control their environment, that they feel that they start feeling safer. But unfortunately, it has the opposite result. So we have people pleasing, we have controlling the environment, we have perfectionism. And perfectionism is a huge one that I used to suffer from, perfectionism, and it's a huge one that people have. So there are all these behavior patterns that we adopt to be able to cope with the fact that we're not dealing with life very well. We're not coping very well. And we've also talked, haven't we, about behavior patterns that you fall into, or I fall into, or everyone does, which is the childlike behavior patterns that we have, or the saboteur that talks in our head and goes, oh, I can't do that. You'll never be able to do that. You'll never be good enough. And the victim. The victim pattern, the victim is the person who won't take responsibility for what's going on. They just won't. Their life for themselves. So they'd rather fall into that pattern because it's easier and safer to be in their little slot. Being the victim, unfortunately, causes us a huge amount of problems. So do the other ones. So learning those and understanding those makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's so beautiful to understand them, because then you can realize when you're playing the victim card, or that you can see yourself doing it. And that's because then you can do something about it. Sometimes the problem is you don't know, if people who haven't had personal development will not even notice that they're doing it. There's no recollection of it. So being able to notice what you're doing then gives you the ability to change it. So for me, it was learning some of the traits. Like with me, I struggle with being perfectionism in a lot of things, and just learning to dial back a bit and learning just better ways of dealing with life. Like for me, I struggle with OCD, and OCD was a way of me trying to improve my perfectionism as well. And it was a way of me trying to improve, but really all it did was cause me a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And now I see there's a lot better ways
Mm.
in life with life just to get through life, and it's actually far better and a positive and feels good, and I actually achieve far more.
Mm.
Because sometimes a lot of people out there, they don't realize that, including myself, which frustrates me still. I'm still working on this, but you stand in your own way. That's the only person that's standing in your way, and I stand in my own way. And I see that some people, they say they want to do all these things and they're more than capable of doing them, but it's their mental health stops them. It cuts them off short, and it's so sad to see, because I feel if your mental health was good, that wouldn't be an issue, and you could
Yeah.
go and do exactly what you desire to do.
That's so true. And I was just thinking about the example, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning it, I'm sure
No?
you won't. The fact that you're a strong man. You
Yeah,
do strongman stuff, don't you? And I remember when I met you that one of your biggest desires was to do a competition.
yeah,
And because deeply inside of you, you knew you were good, but you all of these thoughts that you had held you back so much from doing it. And so you finally decide to go and do it. And the lead up to it is your mind and your thinking, your thoughts are all over the place.
yeah,
Weren't they? They were
yeah,
all over the place telling
yeah,
you that all these things that you're going to tell me in a minute what they were telling you, but it's so fascinating because when you then got on the stage, all of that went away, and then
yeah,
you were connected to who you are authentically,
yeah,
and you did amazingly well for somebody who's just, gone into a competition for the first time and has never done anything like that. So tell us, what does the mind do?
well, my mind, because so I had almost, I decided, right, I'm going to do it. So I booked myself in, and then my mind, I knew what I was doing and what I was capable in the gym of doing, and I was getting stronger. Everything was on the outside. Everything was going how it should go, but on the inside, my mind was constantly the what ifs.
Yeah.
Or am I good enough? Is something going to go wrong? And I'd think of every minor detail of what could go wrong.
Mm.
And I wasn't being all like authentic, because the reality of the situation was, with the amount of practice and level I put into it, I knew it would be fine.
Mm.
But it, all those little thoughts, trying to what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, and that's why all the way lead up to was, what if this happened? What if that happens? What if? And it drags you down. And I mean, for me, it actually made me train less optimally
Yeah.
at one point, because I lost body weight through stress of of the what ifs. And now I realize that I try my best. I still get the what ifs, but I connected anxiety and OCD as a one, when anxiety is an emotion and OCD is an issue. And together, I created this horrible pattern of going over what ifs in my mind.
Mm.
And it was really hard to think, but deep down, I still knew, even though I was not at that point, I wasn't as nowhere near as well as I am now mentally. I deep down knew that I was going to be okay. But all
Yeah.
the what ifs and that, and really what it is, I think, is it's for me, it's trying to, because it's something that's a bit nervous, but something that you desire. It's trying to keep you in your safe zone, because you're pushing boundaries. But
Yes.
if you don't push boundaries, I feel, in a way, this sounds probably a bit, but I feel you're selling your soul a little bit. If you're
Yes.
really desire to do something, yet you don't, because of a mental illness or
Mm.
something like that, in a way, every day you can feel yourself desiring it and you feel unfulfilled. And the reason is because you know you can do it. And it's very hard. And then once you start learning better ways, for me, just looking at the reality of things and saying the reality is good, and accepting the reality if something goes wrong, that's massive as well. That's
Yeah.
very, but you just have to accept the reality of life, of what's going on and where you are right now. And if you keep doing that, life tends to go very well.
That's just living in the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
You gave such a beautiful example of what we talk about a lot, which is the difference between our head mind and our body mind.
Yeah.
So the head mind is this amazing computer brain that we've got that is the best special effects movie department in the world. It creates all the what ifs, and I have to, and I must, and I should. And we have a lot of thinking going on.
Yeah.
So, and that thinking is being driven from our belief system. So if we've got a whole load of beliefs that aren't great, we're going to have a whole load of thinking that isn't great. And when we start noticing, you mentioned earlier about, we've got a space inside of us that is it's 100% honest. It's really connected to the truth and who we are. It has a beautiful voice that speaks very quietly, and it tells us go in this direction, don't go in that direction. And it's a relationship that, to this place, it's a relationship that we all need to start cultivating, start having that relationship with it, and realizing that not everything that you think or I think or anybody else thinks is real.
Yeah.
Because it's a stream of consciousness coming through our mind. And if we start activating the observer that we've got inside of us, our awareness, that observer notices, like you said earlier, it notices when we're falling into patterns of behavior that are like the perfectionist or the victim, or, thinking around that. And we have a choice to step away from that, to allow that consciousness just to pass on by, because something new is going to come along.
Yeah.
So that inner world is something we just need to get to know more, that quiet space.
Yeah. And it's when you use the observer and you step into that authentic you, it is really, you find it really amazing. Because for me, when I was ill, I'd have moments of where and now I'm more in that, but I'd have moments where I'd step into it when I was ill. Like, for instance, for me, it's strange, some people are different, but for me, under pressure and when I'm needed to perform, the authentic me come in, and I felt totally at home. When at the most time, when you'd say, oh, this could be really nerve wracking, none of it. I just become who I was, which was confident and ready to perform, like I did it in the strongman competition, like I did in front of, I'm a farmer, if I needed to do something on the farm that required something, if I'm put under pressure, I was there 100% authentically. And which is a strange thing. So it's beautiful when you see those moments, and then you come back and you think, why am I not doing that the whole time?
Yeah. Well, we want to be in it more and more, for sure. And it is true that we all have moments where we're just in alignment, where we're grounded. And it's an amazing feeling when we just know that everything is right, everything feels good, and by the way, that's usually when our mind is completely empty and we're just feeling that moment inside of us. So but the problem is that humans think. And because we have thoughts, we are going to have moments when we drop away from who we are, but we want to reduce those, don't we? We want to live more in the now, in the moment, and connected to that inner world rather than connected to our mind.
Yeah.
And that's when people start doing that, the issues that they have, whether they're men or women, start falling away. Anxiety falls away, depression falls away. We just live a much, much healthier life. So yeah, it's great, isn't it? It's just a great subject.
It's so, for me, when I was, well, understanding that was so hard for me.
Yeah.
But when I did start to see it, because you start to feel the real you coming through, all of a sudden it becomes clear. But for me, it was very hard to see it. And a lot of people will sometimes say that and think, what are you on about? But if you keep working on yourself, eventually you'll see the true you come through.
Yeah.
And then once you are the true, usually what I find with anything, most people can do what they want to do as long as the mind's in the right place to do it.
Yeah. Or when the mind is empty, they are able to do it. It's the mind that takes them away. So we're going to finish in a moment, but I'm going to leave people with this analogy to understand it, is that, well, two of them actually. So if you were standing by a pond and you took a stone and you threw the stone in the pond, and the result of that is that everything becomes murky. Well, we can't see what's in the pond, can we?
No.
We have to wait sometimes for the pond to slowly settle down and clear. We don't want to be doing, we don't want to do the doing. We just want to wait and allow it to clear. Well, that's like our thoughts. When we notice that we're overthinking, we're thinking lots of things, the best thing to do is do nothing. Don't try and fix problems. Don't dive in there and try and do something. Allow your mind to clear, allow the thinking to settle, because you're far more likely to see things more clearly. You're far more likely to have clarity, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I do see that. And I mean, when you're stressed, it's so hard to think in the right way. But when your anxiety is really high, but when you let things, you sit back and do nothing and let the anxiety drop, you can think clearer.
Yeah. And the last one, which we've talked about a lot, and I talk about it to everybody, it was what I was taught actually, is about the snow globe. If you had a snow globe and you're the figure in the middle of the snow globe and you shake it up, like we shake our thinking up, you know, we tend to get in that washing machine and get caught up with overthinking. And when you shake it, the snow globe up, you've got all the snow floating around. That's our thinking in our mind. How can anybody think properly when all of that is going on inside there? So it's another example. If we just leave it alone, leave the snow globe alone, and everything is going to calm down and we're going to see things clearly. So that's really what we're trying to do, because you get more connected with who you truly authentically are, the real you that you were born to be, when you realize that you don't have to overthink to be connected to that. You're far more likely to be connected to it when you don't do that.
No, it is very, but it's also very hard to do sometimes, to let yourself relax. But that's why I think it's very helpful for people to go and seek help to get personal development and that, so you can find a way to do that. Because sometimes for people, if you're on your own and you're at the time and you're struggling to, sometimes the anxiety just builds and builds, and then you build it yourself. You keep building it yourself. So that's why I suggest to people, go and get help so you can learn these methods to bring down your anxiety.
The more you understand, the more it automatically just starts happening. You know, that every insight, every understanding that you get about how your world works inside of you, the more and more peace that you can connect to. So, and that to me is what amazing, to be able to share that with people is an amazing thing. So we're going to finish, and I hope somebody gets something out of that. And thank you so much, Ross, for sharing your insights. And I'm sure we're going to speak soon and have another one of these. Bye for now.
Bye.